Well, hello everyone. This is Betsy Brick, Development Officer of Early Music Seattle, and I'm once again coming to you from my apartment downtown with another interview featuring one of our amazing artists from the virtual production For All Our Sisters. And I'm pleased to introduce you to Janet C., who is a world-class Baroque and early classical flute player who for 3 decades has performed as a soloist in chamber music and orchestras throughout Europe and North America, including our own Seattle Baroque Orchestra. And I'm delighted to have you join me today, Janet.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So before we dive in to talk about the For All Our Sisters project, I would like to take a few moments to find out a little bit more about how music entered your life personally. So to start, what is your earliest memory of being captivated by music?
It is when my mother took me to hear the Seattle Symphony. And we had tickets for the back row and the second balcony. And I looked down from a great height down into the stage, and I saw this glint of silver in the lights shining onto the stage. It was a modern flute, right?
Wow.
I must have said to my mom, I think I'd like to play that instrument. And being a really talented musician herself, she got lessons from me from Adele Sterry, who was the piccolo player of the Seattle Symphony back in the early 60s.
Wow.
And Adele was an amazing teacher, really, really, really kind, really engaging, understanding of a little 9-year-old, who was deliriously happy to be playing this instrument. And so I got off to a really, really good start, thanks to my mom.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. So, so who inspired you, or what inspired you to become a Baroque and early classical flute player?
I went to Oberlin Conservatory after high school, and the flute teacher there was Professor Robert Willoughby. And he had been a flutist in the Cleveland Orchestra. He was a real high-powered modern flute player, a very, very good teacher, a little bit intimidating, especially when we're at 8 in the morning. But he actually, in my junior year, he actually decided that he would use his sabbatical year to go to Holland and to study Baroque flute with Franz Wester. And when I look back upon this, I think this is incredible. This is a professor who very, very, as I say, really esteemed modern flute player, had played in the Cleveland Orchestra, was a professor at Oberlin Conservatory, but he decided he was going to try something really different. And so he went to Holland for my junior year, during my junior year, and he studied Baroque flute with Franz Wester. And when he came back to Oberlin for what would have been my senior year, he actually acquired Baroque flutes for the conservatory at that point. So that was the beginning of Baroque flute at Oberlin Conservatory. And I was really, really captivated by the instrument. I'd always liked the Baroque repertoire. I preferred it far over, French Impressionist music, or the more kind of virtuosic, fast flying, loud modern flute repertoire. So I'd always preferred Baroque repertoire. So when I was exposed to this instrument for which the repertoire was written, it was a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned. And so I actually worked quite hard on it during my senior year, and I played a piece on my senior recital on the Baroque flute. And also I remember playing a performance of the Brandenburg Fifth Concerto at Oberlin. So that was kind of the beginning of it for me, and also for Baroque flute at Oberlin Conservatory.
Oh, wow. Okay.
1972 and 19.
Oh, my.
There we go.
Oh, so what are the key differences between those instruments, the Baroque and the early classical flute? And in addition to that, what do you believe necessitated the creation of the modern flute in the first place?
Right. I should have brought my classical flute up to this shed where I am. But anyway, the main difference is the addition of keys.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the Baroque flute, there are many notes that are really covered and really shaded in tone quality. And while we come to appreciate them very much, they have a very special, dark, kind of mysterious tone color. Um, and that in itself, that aspect of the Baroque flute is one of the main differences between the modern flute and the Baroque flute. The modern flute evolved as an instrument where there's total homogeneity, almost total homogeneity between all the notes, equally strong, more or less equal in tone color, but that's just not possible on the Baroque flute. The classical flute is somewhere in between, where because these shaded, weaker notes came to be viewed as less acceptable as, you know, as halls got bigger, as repertoire became more virtuosic, as the kind of the sensibility brightened in terms of the flute sound. So then keys were added to provide a stronger tone color, a stronger note, where previously there'd been a very shaded note like G sharp, B flat, what we call the cross-fingered notes on the Baroque flute. So keys started being added. 1847, Boehm invented his system of keys on the flute, which is basically the same system with some modifications and improvements that's used today. So it's the modern flute evolved into what is, you know, a very, very different instrument from its 18th century predecessor.
Yes, absolutely.
And also the modern flute, in terms of pitch, we typically play at A415 now on the Baroque flute, which is a half step below modern pitch. Modern pitch being 440 plus these days. And the conventional pitch for classical flute, which is then the 6 or 8 keyed flute with the addition of those keys that were added to strengthen the weak notes. That pitch is typically these days A430. So it's in between the Baroque and the modern pitch.
Okay. Okay.
The bore of the classical 6 or 8 keyed flute is different. It's basically a bore that enables one to play more brightly and stronger up high, because the role of the flute now is changing. I mean, you have with classical flute, you have, you know, you're riding on top of a Beethoven symphony, you're riding on top of the tone color, and you're playing very, very high. So the bore of that instrument, along with the keys, had to be modified in order for us to be able to do that. So it's a very different role in the classical era that the flute plays.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. So moving on to the For All Our Sisters project, what intrigued you about it and made you decide to jump on board, so to speak?
Right. Gus approached me with the proposition of playing Debussy's Syrinx as a piece that I played a lot as a modern flutist and liked very much. And it immediately seemed to me like a piece that would work on Baroque flute, because it's free, it's improvisatory, you know, it's a very soulful song, basically. I knew it wasn't going to work pitch-wise because it's a bit too low, goes a bit too low for the Baroque flute. But I have a friend and student, Miguel Rodet, who he's very adept at finale. So I asked him if he would transpose it up half a step, and he did. Sent me the music, I tried it, it worked fine, except there are two notes that don't work, and I've just supplemented those notes with another note close by. Not really noticeable, I don't think. But what's interesting is that because the Baroque flute is a half step lower than modern pitch, and he had to transpose it up a half step in order for me to play it. It's actually now at the same pitch as it would be played on a modern flute.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So So transposing it to the Baroque flute, how, the music for that, how did it change the character and color of the original piece, would you say?
That's a good question. I think because of the instrument itself, the modern flute, it's also way dependent upon how a person plays the modern flute, of course.
Oh, sure.
But it will be a strong sound, right? It'll be a bright sound, a brilliant sound, which is, if a modern flute player is really sensitive, they can darken and create shades, shades of tone. But I think, and strangely enough, when the piece was transposed up a step, it was transposed into a key, which is quite bright on the modern flute.
Mm-hmm.
It was not transposed into a key with multiple flats, which is the original key on the modern flute. So in transposing it, it brightened it for the Baroque flute, which is probably a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's about what I can say about that.
Okay.
And it transposed it into, I mean, playing Baroque flute in a key with multiple flats can be really awkward fingering wise.
Mm-hmm.
And also because you have, in a key with multiple flats, you have a lot of very covered notes. If you have to move around quickly, as there are some passages in Syrinx that move quite quickly, and if you have to move quickly in a key with a lot of flats on the Baroque flute, it can get to sound a little bit like a muddle. So it actually works really well in a key without a lot of flats, and in a key that's brighter and a little bit more, it has more clarity and articulate quality between the notes on the Baroque flute, if that makes sense.
Yes, no, I think it does. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. So in the video you produced introducing the story behind this piece, we learned that Syrinx was a Greek nymph who was turned into reeds to escape the amorous clutches of Pan, a half-man, half-goat creature who was enraptured by her. And Syrinx sadly ends up having to sacrifice her true nature to avoid capture, to try to avoid capture. So have there been sacrifices or transformations you've had to make in your own life and career in order to be seen and heard? And if so, what are those sacrifices?
Oh, that's a very good question. The shorter answer to that is I feel extremely lucky in that, because of my circumstances and being exposed to the flute at an early age, being well supported by my mom and my family, and then having the freedom and flexibility to move to Europe at a certain point. Mm-hmm. Basically being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Also, before moving to Europe, I was one of the founding members of Philharmonia Baroque in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. Right place, right time. Having just completed my studies of Baroque flute at Oberlin and being, one of the 3 people in the US playing Baroque flute at that point. Right place, right time, good training. And then the freedom and flexibility to go to Europe. And when I was living in Berkeley in the mid-70s, John Elliott Gardner came to Berkeley. He knew a harpsichordist I played with, so he came to one of our rehearsals, made that connection, went to Europe, played with him. I mean, I've been very lucky. Mm-hmm. Very lucky. So this morning, I was walking around the block and thinking about this interview and thinking about Syrinx and the story of Syrinx. Okay, so then I started thinking about my mom. My mom, I hope you don't mind my talking about my mom.
Not at all. Please do. Please share.
So it's really important because, here was Syrinx, who was a follower of Artemis, very independent, you can imagine free soul, free spirit, and gets chased by this lecherous, hideous half goat, half man. And guess what? She loses her freedom and independence. And so I was thinking about my mom, who was a very intelligent, very, very intelligent woman, very musical. She went to the University of Washington, but she had to drop out because she had no money. And the war came along. And so she got a job in the shipyards and met my dad. And you know, she, as I say, she was extremely musical, extremely intelligent, but the 50s came along, right? And she had 3 daughters, she had 3 girls. And, you know, it wasn't this lecherous creature chasing her, but she was hijacked by the 1950s.
Yes.
And this, you know, this stereotype of the white middle class dutiful homemaker, right?
Yes.
She just didn't have, with all of this talent and intelligence, she just didn't have role models around her to say, hey, Jean, ditch the kids, you know, go back for your degree and start a performance career.
Right.
And I have thought about that quite a lot lately. It's been a good time for reflection, right?
Absolutely, it sure has. Yeah.
So I feel like, in a sense, this is, I guess, the point I'm making. I feel like, in a sense, I am the panpipes. I am her panpipes. You know, which explains why she was always incredibly proud of me and kind of pushing me. Not really pushing, but just really supportive of me.
Yes.
But because she was hijacked on her journey. And I haven't been hijacked by a lecherous creature.
Right.
Or by a lack of role models because of the times.
Yeah.
And when I was playing with the orchestra in London with Gardner's orchestra, and we were touring all over Europe and around the world, and there were several other women in the orchestra who had babies. I had my son at that point. He was born in 94. So, and there were several other women in the orchestras that had small children and babies, and they would just pick them up and take them with on tour, as I did. So it wasn't easy, but you know, you'd be asking around, now who's a good babysitter in the hotel in Parma, you know, and then you have to get on the phone and line up the babysitter.
Wow.
It was by no means easy to do that. But again, unlike my mom, unlike women of the 50s, I had like a mechanism around me supporting me and continuing to follow my dream and my passion, and still do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think about that quite a lot now. And it seems to relate to me to the story of Syrinx, because you know, she was, you know, her dreams and her real nature, her true nature was cut short by Pan. My mother's was cut short by the 50s, you know, the
circumstances.
Yeah. So
wow.
Thinking about that.
That is some wonderful reflection. Absolutely. I love how mythology can come into our modern lives, the stories that it tells, and just the metaphors that are available that help us make sense of our lives and lives of others. It's
right.
Really, I don't know, there's a sense of reassurance there, you know, when you can see things from different perspectives like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you mentioned that there are role models that you had that your mother didn't have. So who are those role models for you in history and in the present day who've had the greatest influence on you, would you say?
You know, I think immediately to Lorette Goldberg, who was the founder of Philharmonia Baroque. She was a powerhouse. This was in the 1980. She was a harpsichordist. She'd studied with Leonhardt. But when she felt like something needed creating or something needed to be done, she would just do it. I mean, I'll never forget her. She was an amazing fundraiser. She was quite a short woman, and she would just walk straight up to, you know, to people who she knew had funds to support the fledgling Baroque orchestra, and she would just ask them for money and tell them they were going to be on the board, you know, of this new orchestra.
Just indeed, I will say from experience.
Yeah, she was amazing. She was a very strong role model.
Mm.
And then just colleagues of mine. I mean, other women in the early days of Philharmonia Baroque, thinking of Elizabeth Blumenstock, Elizabeth Le Guin, Katie Kime, you know, women with small children, just doing it. And then in London, countless women with, you know, with young children, playing at the highest level for probably, you know, without doubt, one of the more demanding conductors in Europe, just doing it, you know, finding a way to do it.
Yeah.
Stressful, but just doing it. So colleagues at that point, very, very important. So Rachel Beckett was my second flute player in Gardner's orchestra, and she had, you know, 3 kids, and we just did it. You just found a way for it to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're talking about all these women, are there qualities that they share in common that you could identify that really were impressive to you? Obviously, courage came in.
Strength, physical, you know, strength, sense of humor.
Oh yes.
Humor. Trust, you know, a sense of trusting, you know, that when you get to Parma, you know, the babysitter who said she'll be there will be there to look after your child because you actually have to be at the rehearsal in 20 minutes. You know, so trust, humor, courage, strength. Yeah.
So what do you hope people are going to leave with after seeing all the creative offerings around the For All Our Sisters project?
Oh, I think audiences hopefully will leave with many points of inspiration, and it seems like it's a project that has kind of shaken things up. I mean, Erin's composition is so, I haven't heard it in its entirety, of course. I was so looking forward to playing it, but I think that in itself is an inspiration that he has composed this piece.
Yes.
I think it's a concert outside of the box, right? You have Milvia's beautiful expressive dancing.
Yes.
It's something, I think you're seeing and hearing things that you wouldn't normally see and hear on the stage at Benaroya.
Yes, right.
It's creative, incredibly creative, and expressive. And there is some improvising, right, that I've done with Danielle, that Erin has, you know, worked with. I mean, just incredibly creative segments.
Yes.
And just the fact that it's not being one performance that, you know, the audience comes and sits in rows and here's a performance and now it's over. And there are interviews like this and introductions to solo performances, you know, on Zoom. It's just, I mean, it is a product of the times, but I think it's kind of open. I think this project has opened the door to a bunch of creativity that may not otherwise have happened.
Absolutely. And it may change the nature of what we're going to present next season. You know, we had originally envisioned by doing this project kind of as a precursor to that, or as its own separate entity even, it'll be interesting to see the artistic decisions that are made as to how we do put it on the stage at Benaroya or Town Hall or wherever we're going to end up having it, for the public to come see. So yeah, I'd be really interested to see how doing it in this format is going to change that.
I think it will. I mean, I think it will. I think it will bring a depth onto the stage, because things have been shaken up. I mean, it's had to have been kind of segmented and but in a sense, I feel like the segments have gone deeper. There's been a deepening of every aspect of it.
Yes. Even though people are seeing it virtually and it's being performed virtually, there's this richness that's there that may not have been there.
I am finding that teaching that same quality to teaching flute lessons on Zoom. Yeah, there's a quality. I mean, clearly the sound isn't brilliant. It's not 100%. And so sometimes it's hard to perceive, differences in sound that a student is making. But there is a certain deepening of the lesson, of the quality of the lesson.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm finding that students, because the opportunity to play together, student teacher is not there.
Right.
The opportunity to work more in depth with skills that really need to be addressed. Like no one's in a hurry to move on from doing that work.
Right.
Else is to do.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm finding, I wasn't expecting to find that quality to Zoom lessons, but it is there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's all new territory for us, it's this sort of process of discovery we're having to do, at least from a virtual standpoint.
Right.
And it has been interesting, the opportunities that it has offered. I think it has enriched us in some ways, even though it's been difficult to be away from each other and not being able to, go and hear live music performance, which of course is just so meaningful and enriching to give us. But there are other opportunities this has presented, and if anything, it's going to make us appreciate it, I think, that much more, the fact that we've had to have it taken away for a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Musicians these days, crave playing together.
Oh, absolutely.
Crave playing together. The project that I really have a lot invested in right now is recording on Voice Memo, which is an app on my phone, which is surprisingly good, surprisingly effective. But so I record flute duet parts for my students and I send them. And I got an email the other day from one student saying, "I hope you know how much I appreciate this." She said, "I don't feel I'm in a vacuum anymore." I mean, it's a recording, but still, I speak on the recording. I say, "All right, this is where you need to watch out. Make sure your F sharps aren't too low." Okay, go. And so it's, it's personal. It's offering something to them, and it's what I have to offer, and I enjoy it. It fills me up to be able to do it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, anything else that you'd like to add before we sign off?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean,
where can people find out more about you, Janet? What's the best place to go to do that?
Probably online.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a website, janetc.com.
Okay.
One of the other, actually, I could add that one of the other things I'm working on now is every summer I lead a Baroque flute workshop at Seattle Pacific University, which is, of course, not happening.
Right.
But we're going to do it online.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm busy just organizing presentations for that, and also really trying to figure out, what will be valuable in the, in the online format.
Yes.
Because it's pretty weird, right? Having a workshop where you can't hear everyone that after you demonstrate something. And it won't be possible, of course, because you can't play and have them play at the same time.
Right.
And not that, one person at a time, but that's just not the state of a workshop with 12 flute players. So it's tricky, but so I'm really working in my mind on how to present a workshop that's valuable and interesting, and and doesn't over Zoom people.
Sure, over Zoom. Oh, I haven't heard that term before. I like that. I'll have to use that.
People are already over Zoomed, so.
So when is that taking place, that workshop?
That's July 20th through 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Well,
the faculty recital will be the Sunday night previous to that, and that will be, just those of us on the faculty playing short solos.
Okay. Yeah. Lovely.
We'll make the best of it.
Well, I wish you all the best with it.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I really, really enjoyed it. I know our audience will too, and they're really going to look forward to seeing your virtual performance of Syrinx in the coming weeks. So
thank you. Thanks, Betsy.
Absolutely. Yeah, you take good care.
Okay, thanks. You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.